we have this phrase generation gap.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe sometimes even society, maybe even the church, is almost puts that forward and sort of fuels it, because we have our young people's groups, we have our old people's groups, and in society we have the same, and yet God's picture of the church is the family.
Absolutely.
Now, in the family, you are all together, and yes, you have different ideas, different views, you have different, do different things, but you are a family together, and you don't say, oh, the older people do it and the younger. Sometimes in the church we do that. Do you think we've got to try and do much more to bring the family together and be the family as a whole group together?
Yes, I think the church has done that for a long time, has run groups. It's not surprising really, because there are, and I think our society hasn't, it just generally, in normal families, they're very dispersed. And I think the church tends to reflect what happens in society, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And usually you find that families don't all live in the same household. You very rarely find an older person living with a younger person in their household. They mainly don't want to, or some people don't want to because they don't want to be a burden. Others just
can't stand it.
Yes, can't stand it. And they do have different values and different beliefs. But yes, we do have to find ways of bridging the gap. And I think the church needs to treat older people with much more respect, and find a purpose for them and a function for them. And churches which are prospering, of course, do that, and often have highly successful ministries to older people. It's part of their church. Our own church has a very large ministry for older people, but they don't run a youth group or anything like that. They have a luncheon club,
right?
And they have the speakers tend to be people who relate and talk to their level. You can't talk to them about young people's things. You have to talk to them about things that are relevant to them.
But do you think in the church as a whole and in worship, sometimes so much today is geared towards young people? It seems to be all the people that are playing up the front are the young people. Do you mind you, I probably see some older people playing some of the drums and guitars, but do you think we need to break down this somehow?
Well, somehow we do. I mean, I'm all for putting young people, but they are the next generation.
Yes.
Older people should. I've seen the opposite happen, where older people won't let go of the preaching, and in churches you find older people still preaching away, not giving a place for the younger people and the next generation. Right. So it does work both ways.
Yes.
And I think there's inevitably going to be different groups form. I think it's about how they relate, how they interact, and I think it's about respect. It's about tolerance. It's about understanding, and it varies obviously from church to church, because I say some churches are really good at doing this. Others just have a focus on the youth. But my emphasis is that actually working with older people can be just as exciting spiritually, just as dramatic spiritually, and even working in care homes and an EMI home, you can see God at work in the supernatural as well as in the natural.
Yeah.
And this is if you run a service in an EMI home, that is for people elderly, mentally infirm, most of which have got memory problems, you can actually get a huge response from them. But you won't get a response like you would in a normal service, and you will find people who never speak or never respond to anybody. You start reciting the Lord's Prayer, they start reciting it because they know it, and you can minister through that.
Yes.
And you have to pray that the Holy Spirit will minister to you.
So it's going in with expectation and faith, isn't it? But it's not going in with preconceived ideas of what you're going to do. You've got to meet them. I think it's come out several times. You've got to meet them as people where they are.
Absolutely. But that's what we have to do in life. So often we want to meet people where we're at.
That's right.
Rather than where they're at. I mean, you may be whole, you may be positive, but so many people aren't like that. And if you're going to care for people, you have to meet them in their pain, in their hurts and their needs, and in the way they think.
An email from Lauren, who she says watching right now. Lauren says she's great to hear you talking about the holistic approach. She spent 4 years in a doctor's surgery trying to get a health pack. She also then goes on to say that she wasn't finding healing within the church after much prayer. And so she then turned to sort of natural ingredients such as herbs, frankincense, natural detox, and she feels totally liberated from the use of medications that usually have side effects. Maybe you want to comment on that at the moment. And she seems to have got back her life that way. How would you respond to that?
Yes, well, this is about the church, just if you're just having a narrow view, if it's just going to be looking at prayer only, because it isn't just about prayer, it's about lifestyle, it's about the food you eat, it's about the exercise you do, it's about your relationships, it's about where you live, it's about all these things. And some people do find help by looking at these other areas of life, other than just the spiritual. The church so often just wants to pray with someone, and then if God hasn't done it, off you go, well, get on with it.
Yes.
And actually God's involved in natural healing as well as in supernatural healing. In fact, I would say a lot of healing is natural by applying biblical principles and behaving in the right way.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back. I'll ask you a couple more questions in a moment. But we're joined by Linda. Linda from Spain. Hello, Linda.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi there. Is the sun shining?
Yes, it's shining and the sea is blue and everything.
If the Bible didn't tell me not to be envious, I would be.
Yeah, I believe it's quite cold over there, is it?
Yeah, cold and wet.
Yeah,
but we're still rejoicing in the Lord, even so, even through gritted teeth.
Of course.
Linda, what can we do for you?
Well, I've been listening to your program. I am a Christian, and I discovered it 3 months ago, and I'm virtually watching 5 or 6 hours a day, and I've learned so much from these programs. But this today I'm very interested in, because I can relate to what you're talking about with regards to old people, as I have a 92-year-old father.
Yeah.
Right.
My mother died 10 years ago, and I've been left to cope with this situation and the problems that you've been talking about. And I'm finding it very, very difficult to cope, because obviously I have to look after him, not 24/7 exactly, but I find he's very, very demanding. He's very, very spiritually low in himself. He doesn't want to go to church.
Was he brought up as a Christian, Linda?
He wasn't brought up as a Christian, but he has been for the last 30 years.
Right. Yeah. Fine.
And he's lived here for 30 odd years now.
Right.
And he's always ardently gone to church, and the pastor offers to pick him up, and he just doesn't want to know.
Right.
He can't walk very, very far, but he has plenty of lifts.
Yeah.
I just find it very, very... I'm not qualified in caring.
Right.
I can cook and do the household chores, but he's gone very much into himself, and we always seem to be at loggerheads, and it's been like this for quite a few years now, and I feel like I'm just at my wit's end trying to cope.
Right.
Yeah.
Mervyn, can you speak into that situation?
Well, yes,
for
it's
Linda?
obviously, it is very difficult when you're the sole carer and everything hangs off your shoulders. And one of the things that happens with older people, they can become very selfish and self-centered because they become depressed, and especially if they don't feel they've got any hope or future. And then when people become depressed, they don't think of anybody else other than themselves. And it sounds like your father could benefit from some help, whether this is medical help or actually from a practical point of view. In the UK here, I run quite a well-established care agency where we care for people in their own home, recognising that it is very difficult today where you're left on your own, the sole carer, nobody else maybe to help you, and you can't have any breaks, you have no relief from it, and certainly no training. So we've actually, this is something I feel quite passionate about, that we aren't designed to be on this on our own. Unfortunately, society today often leaves us on our own because of the way society is fragmented. And some of the ways we try to bridge this is through professional help and support. And I would encourage you to find somebody or something that would help you with this. Because I think it is a tall order, personally, to look after a person on your own.
It is.
And to be the sole carer or responsible for them. But unfortunately, many people, this is what happens to them.